Hi class. I wanted to do an example with you about truth tables from section 15.3 of this book, which a lot of you have some confusion with when you're first starting out with them. So let's go through this one. This is example number 1 from slide 15.3 notes, part B. It says construct a truth table for this biconditional statement. So it says P implies Q in parentheses or R, and all of that is in brackets. And we're asked whether or not that is if and only if, new brackets, P and Q in parentheses implies R, close brackets. So the overall statement we see is a biconditional, and we begin by recognizing, of course, that there are three letters, P, Q, and R. So in creating our Venn diagram, we want to make sure that we have a column for P, Q, and R. And remember that since there are three letters, 2 to the third power is 8. So there should be 8 rows, okay? So if you remember from how we set these up, we always start with our P column, half true, half false. So T, 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 T. Then for our remaining P column, the other 4 are false. False, 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 false. If you remember for our next one, Q, we oscillate 2 by 2. So it will be true, true, false, false. True, true, false, false. True, true, false, false. And finally, for our R column, we oscillate true, false, true, false, true, false, true, false. One at a time. I recommend you use colors. That might be very helpful for you if you're a visual person especially. Now that we have our basics set up for P, Q, and R, we ask ourselves, how do I build the statement on the left? So I begin with the parentheses, P implies Q. P implies Q. So remember that is false only if the first is true and the second is false. So let's take a look for when it's false. P, Q. So here's my P column. Here the first is true and the second is true, so that's true. True implies true is true. Here we go. True implies false. There's my false. True implies false. Once again, there's my false. The order matters here. False implies anything is true, so that's not false. So these are all false implies something. So those would all be true statements. So we complete our P implies Q column. So once again, I began with, when is a conditional statement false? Only if the first is true and the second is false. Now to build the entire thing, I need to join that statement with R and a disjunction or. So we take this together with R, and remember for a disjunction to be true, at least one of them must be true. So since we have at least one true, this is true. At least one true, this is true. At least one true, true. No trues, so this would be a false. At least one true, true. 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 So we had that one false case right here since there were no trues present. Okay. So now we've completed our entire first statement in this column here. Now we look to complete our second statement on the right. We need P and Q, the conjunction, first. P and Q. Remember, for a conjunction to be true, both P and Q must be true. So let's take a look. P and Q are both true first, so that's a true. They're both true again here, so that's true. They're not both true here, so that would be false. False again. False again, false again, false again, false again. So only the first two are true, and the remaining are all false in this column. Okay. Moving right along, now we take our P and Q and need to connect it with R with the arrow if then. So remember, we look again, P and Q comes first, so this will only be a false statement if P and Q is true, but R is false. So P and Q here is true, let's check R. R is also true, so that will be a true statement. Here, P and Q is true, but R is false. There's our first lie. Continuing, We look down now at the rest of these and notice that they're all false. So false implies anything will be true. So the remaining ones are all true. So order is very important for if-then conditional statements. Finally, we're supposed to compare the statement on the left with the statement on the right with the biconditional, which is true whenever both are the same value. So let's compare our two big statements here. Our big statements we're talking about are here and here. So looking at these two columns, they're the same here, so that will be true. They're not the same here, so this will be false. They're the same here, so that will be true. They're not the same here, so this will be false. They're the same here, so that will be true. They're the same here, that will be true. They're the same here, that will be true. And they're the same here, that will be true. So we finish our last biconditional column with true, false, true, false, true, 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 true. So there's our final column. In my math lab, while you're doing your homework, you will notice oftentimes that they will skip the intermediate columns and jump right to the end. I highly recommend that you actually write them out by hand and then put your final column in. Otherwise, you kind of miss the purpose and the strategy as to how to do these, and you will be a little more confused when you go to take your test. Our final question was, is this a tautology? Is this a self-contradiction or an implication? Well, remember, an implication only occurs when we have an if-then statement that we're testing. But our original statement was if and only if, a biconditional. So an implication doesn't make any sense here. So that's not it. A self-contradiction. Well, remember, a self-contradiction required that your final column is all false. And we had two falses, but not all falses. So it's not a self-contradiction either. Finally, a tautology. Remember, a tautology only occurs when your final column has all true values, so it's true in every case. That's not the case since we have at least one false here. We have two of them actually. So this is not a tautology. Well, I hope that helped to clarify how we do truth tables in the case where we had three letters, conditionals, biconditionals, ands, ors, oh my. So there's a lot of steps to this. They're kind of tedious, but I think if you take the time to practice this, you can become a master at it as well. All the best. See you soon.